All right, welcome everybody. I'm Mark.
And I'm Evan.
And we're going to be talking about some uncommon plants for southern gardens. And Evan, you know what all these plants have in common?
They're all awesome.
They're all awesome. They're all uncommon. They're all for southern gardens. And they are all right now available for auction at our Southeastern Plant Symposium Rare Plant Auction. Now that's only for the next couple of days, so hopefully you're watching this live or immediately after. Let's, what do you got? What's our first plant?
So we're here in the lath house, so I thought it would be fitting to start with the plant that we just recently planted in the lath house. This right here is Platycladon grandiflorus uzukikio. And it is a very interesting plant with a curly green leaf. It sports a big flat white flower, and it has a pretty upright form. So I've found it very attractive for us here in the lath house, and I think this could be a great plant because it's already died back to the ground and come back.
Yeah, Platycodon's perfectly hardy for us, perfectly easy. This is one we picked up in 2024 in Japan. I don't know if the cultivar names are very good one. It seems like at least Kikyu is part of the name is Japanese for balloon flower, which is what this plant is, or Platycodon. But it's interesting. We got 3 different ones. It was myself, Dan Hinckley from Windcliff Gardens, and Leonard Foltz from Dancing Oaks Gardens were there. We all got one at different places, the same one, because we all had to have it.
Yeah.
Ours flowered pure white. Mm-hmm. Dan's flowered pure blue. And Leonard's flowered white with blue dot spots on it.
And they were all listed as the same cultivar?
All listed as the same cultivar. So, you know, we don't know. We don't know if this year when it flowers, maybe it'll change. It's pretty cool.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I love that plant. Well, as it happens, I have another plant that's in our lath house. This is an evergreen shrub, kind of a thin, loose evergreen shrub, Dendropanix quengiensis. It is an extremely rare plant. You can sometimes find Dendropanix trifidus or trifidus in the trade, although very, very rarely. But this is an unusual species. It was collected by Blevin Wynne Jones of Krug Farms in Wales, where you just were recently.
Yeah.
Beautiful plant. At one point, I put it on a picture of it online, and I had put something wrong in there, and Blevin emailed me immediately with a very Welsh tone to it. And I was like, okay, I'll fix it. And I fixed it. And then he emailed me back and said, I've actually lost that plant. Can you send me a cutting or 2 of it? So, but this beautiful evergreen shrub, kind of little Sputnik-y, small flowers, and then black fruits. Very cool little thing.
Yeah, I love all the Panixes. They're all super interesting.
I'm with you. Panixes.
Yeah. Very cool texture for the garden. Here we have something you're more familiar with. This is ficus. This is Ficus Jolly Tiger, which has an interesting source, which I'm forgetting, but it is a variegated fig. It does produce, and I just cut this one down from the garden, so we propped the last bits of it because it was mostly reverted, and so we're gonna give it a second chance, but this cutting is for Salix ceps.
Yeah, this is one that we sometimes struggle with in the garden. This is one that sometimes people come in and take cuttings of the variegated portion and take it home, which is great because figs are actually easy to propagate. So you could get this plant, you could cut it, you could root it, you'd have 2 plants, you know, and only, 10 years, you make all your money back from it. The cool thing about that, the fruit are variegated as well.
Really?
Yeah. There's another variegated fig that the fruits don't get variegated on there, but this one they do. But like you mentioned, watch out. If you get a shoot that's solid green, cut that off because it'll be more vigorous and it'll take over your whole plant. But yeah, cool plant. All right, I'll stay with I'll try and follow your theme here. Go with a variegated plant. This is Disporum sessile kinga. is the cultivar. And you can see it's just this great variegated plant for shade, real heavily variegated. Despite that, it is quite vigorous. A lot of times these heavily variegated plants are not so vigorous. This one is really vigorous. Has little white flowers. They kind of get lost because the whole plant is so white. Disporum sessile will spread. I don't recommend planting this in, even though this is a small little guy like now, planting this with a lot of other small plants. It's really best when grown where it can go around more robust perennials, shrubs, trees as a ground cover, because it will spread. Now, it's not invasive or anything, but you know, it'll be a garden plant that'll go, and it's easy. You just pluck it up in the spring to rein it in. Give some to your friends; they'll love you for it.
And is that as tall as it gets?
This is about as tall as it gets. Yeah, thanks. It stays 6 or 8 inches tall.
Wow, very nice.
Very
I can
nice
imagine
plant.
that under a tree. That would be just a really nice touch in the shade. So here we have Ilex myrtifolia Dulings variegated, and this is a plant that we have in the garden on the Weeping Walk. And every time I walk by it, I think it's a very fabulous plant. I think it's a bit of a slow grower, but it's well worth it. It's very interesting. It's got a long, narrow leaf and a fun pattern of variegation that changes, but it hasn't reverted for us that I've noticed at all. And so the whole plant is just like this interesting blend of greens and whites. And overall, it's just a very nice plant. I don't know anything more about it, but
It's native.
it's a native.
It's native. Ilex myrtifolia is a native and grows from the kind of the south, all through the southeast, mostly in the coastal plain. Tough as nails. Think of it as Yopon holly, Ilex vomitoria. Very, very close. We actually got our plant at another rare plant auction that we held. Darren Dooling brought it. He's an old friend. He brought the original plant, and I spent a lot of money to get that plant for the Arboretum. The rare plant auction isn't just for you, it's also for us. I spent a lot of money on it. So I'm excited. I didn't even know we had propagated it, and that's awesome because somebody's going to get a really cool plant.
Well worth it.
And that's a heck of a lot bigger than the one I bid on. Okay, now I'm going to go from Disporum to Disporopsis. This is Disporopsis jinfushanensis. Now that variegated Disporum is deciduous. It'll die back to the ground in the winter. Disporopsis is evergreen. This Disporopsis jinfushanensis comes from Jinfushan Mountain. That's redundant. Shan is mountain. Jinfu Mountain or Jinfushan. It only grows, I've seen reports of it growing as much as 6 inches tall. I've been growing this for about 5 years. It has never grown more than 2 inches. And it makes this slowly spreading, just adorable patch. I've got it in my woodland around by some stepping stones, and it just is slowly creeping around there. Very cool little guy. I haven't actually seen it flower, but it would be a white flower held down low, a little bit under the leaves. But this little evergreen creeping thing is just the most adorable thing ever. If you're into fairy gardens, anything like that, you know, it'd be a nice little lawn outside your little fairy garden or something like that. This is not a plant that's easy to come by. That's true of most of these plants.
Yeah, I was going to say. And I'll continue the theme of low and spreading plants. This is Porphyllum linifolium, and this is one we planted last year out in the berms on top of a mound. And it looked beautiful through the year. It spread into a nice clump. It like flowed down the side of the berms a bit. It got about yay big, so like a large dinner plate size, and it was it's just a really nice blue. I mean, you could spot it from far away as you were walking down the path. I don't know if it's hardy.
I don't think so.
But it seems to like baking sun and a well-drained location. And the blue just is, I think it's even better than this when it's in that kind of condition.
Yeah, and it may be more cold hardy if it gets if you put it, get it to the coast or a little bit farther south, it was growing in Uruguay on the coast, which is quite warm, but it's growing with some of the cactus that are cold hardy here and Coletia paradoxa, which is hardy here. But it was growing right on the beach in the sand. So if you get it where, like you said, real baking, really well drained, it stands a chance. But it has not, in the one season it's been outside, it was not cold hardy for us. But this was a pretty tough winter to.
It was. Maybe we could try like a rock garden or a very sandy soil next.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure. Very cool.
Oh, let me go with this guy. We'll stick with Uruguay.
Ooh.
Another of our Uruguay collections. This is Dolichondra, or cat's claw, I think it's sometimes called. This is a vine. I know, I love vines. Not all of you do. I wasn't sure if this was going to be hardy. We're not sure of the species, but probably Dolichondra coccinea, but we don't want to commit to that. This, I planted it in my woodland, or on the edge of my woodland, and it sailed through this past winter, no problem at all. I've got it climbing up a tree. When this flowers, the flowers are 6 inches long, really long tube of orangey red with yellow at the end. Think of kind of a, if you know our cross vine, our native cross vine, very similar to that. And it's just weaving through the trees there. It can get to be a pretty vigorous vine, so give it some room to grow. I think it will flower best in more sun. That's why I have it on a woodland edge. So it's kind of in the shade, getting a little bit of cold protection, but it's out in the sun. Hopefully going to flower this year or next. But Dolichondra, cat's claw vine.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you could hear that and not be in love with vines. I mean, a 6-inch flower on a vine, you can structure that wherever in your garden. That's quite the effect. I don't know actually where this is originally from, but this is Nagia nagi, which is a Podocarpus relative that is hardy for us. This specific one is from a very dense collection down in Florida, you said?
Yeah.
At a botanic garden?
The University of Florida Gardens of the Big Bend.
Gardens of the Big Bend. And I really love this plant. This one I have a soft spot for it because as it grows up, it gets a really cool bark. And it has like a nice mottled pattern that twists around the trunk. And I'm just a big fan of that new growth. And it's evergreen and tough for us. I don't really see them drop leaves. And we have this in pretty full shade, part shade, and then now I'm trying one in full sun. And I think it can handle all those conditions, but I think full or almost full sun will be the faster growing.
Yeah, and you forgot to say kind of the most interesting part about this. Which group of plants?
The Podocarpus?
Yeah, or they're conifers.
Oh, they're conifers, yes.
You know, this is basically what would be a needle on another conifer, which is very cool. That's the thing. We think we know it's a conifer, but yeah, it's very weird. This group has these wide leaves on there.
And usually the members of Podocarpaceae that have like the bigger and fatter the leaf, the less hardy it is. It seems to be. We've planted a couple things that just do not make it, but this one does. We had a relative Nagia florii. We got variegated cuttings of. None of them rooted. Oh man, I was excited about that.
Probably wouldn't have been hardy anyway, but
we can dream.
Yep, we can dream. All right, got one in flower here. This is fuchsia, and we searched high and low, trialed I don't know how many fuchsias to get one that was growing well, that would grow well for us. We found two. One is a cultivar called Sanahanth, or angel earrings cascading. This one is the hatchback fuchsia, Fuchsia hatchbackii. And it makes kind of an upright arching shrub, real narrow leaves. Kind of, you know, it's good to tuck in around other things. If you plant it near other plants, it'll kind of try and scramble through them. But it flowers all season long with these bright pink flowers with the purple centers. Really beautiful. And it'll form fruit, and they're little red fruits, and the fruit are absolutely delicious. If you grow unusual edible plants and you don't have a hardy fuchsia, you're missing out because they're so good. We might have seedlings in here if it wasn't for me going through and eating those. I shouldn't have said that in front of Evan.
Yeah, now your problem's going to get worse.
That's right. It's just an awesome plant. Plant it in some shade. It seems to do best in some at least light shade. But yeah, easy, awesome plant. And dies back to the ground in the winter and comes popping back up. We've even had really mild winters where it didn't die all the way back. So neat plant.
Yeah, and sometimes we say it flowers the whole season, and it's like, technically it does, but it's a little spotty. This one looks great the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a perennial.
Yeah.
It just keeps going, keeps giving. So Mark brought out a big plant, so I'm gonna bring out a bigger plant, which is Taxodium disticum falling water. I never say that right. Is it disticum?
I say disticum, but it's probably technically disticum.
Disticum?
Or if it's, the Germans would say, they don't use the long I for Latin names, so they would say disticum.
Disticum. Anyway, this is falling water, which is obviously a weeping cultivar. And I am a really big fan of weeping taxodiums. I mean, we have one on the weeping walk that's just an absolutely fabulous texture. Is this the tallest that this one will get? Is it just weeping from here, or will it continue to send out new
Falling
weepers?
water will kind of go up and arch on itself and kind of go up. If you really wanted it to go higher, you might want to, this
Stake
when it
that
starts
up.
arching, stake it up. But it is one of those ones that'll kind of boom, and will eventually get higher. But I've got one that I've kind of trained, I've got it going up, and I haven't let it weep at all yet. It's in too much shade and it isn't growing very fast.
Yeah, so these like full sun, and they can tolerate most conditions. And I love the texture and the form on these. So really great plant, and I'm glad that we have it up for auction.
Another native. And these grow naturally in very wet areas, so that you can put it in a wet area and it is really happy there. But the thing with plants that grow, a lot of these trees especially that grow in wet areas, there's no oxygen in that soil. And so they'll grow in really compacted soil. So this can actually grow as an urban tree in really compacted soils.
In that dense clay?
It slows it down, but in that dense clay, it'll be able to grow.
That's good to know. A good tree for like a starting homeowner, or if it's a new construction, something that'll quickly give the house character.
Yeah. And I should mention, for those who don't know, it is another conifer, but it's a deciduous conifer. It'll turn this beautiful russet in the fall, and then all the needles will drop, and you'll have that wonderful weeping form over the winter that you can see the bones of, and then it flushes out with this beautiful lime green, and then becomes a little bit darker. It's incredible all the time.
Yeah.
Good pick. So I love my Acubas. Those of you who watch these a lot of times know how much I love my Acubas. This is Acuba albopunctifolia. This is a species that you're not going to find in the U.S. Unless we have given it to somebody, there are two places that have this, and that's us and Atlanta Botanic Garden, who we collected it with.
Excuse me.
All we typically grow is Acuba japonica. This is much more refined. It's got a smaller leaf, although with time and age, it'll get wider and longer. And it's got these little white spots. They're not gold spots, little white spots. Albopunctifolia literally means white spotted. Great for a little shade plant. This seems, we haven't been growing it for too many years. This seems like it's going to stay pretty small, like 3 feet or so. And the one we found in the wild was even smaller than that, but it wasn't terribly happy. We grew out seedlings. This is one that we've named Lipping Lady, L-I-P-I-N-G, because it was from, we collected seed at the Lipping Forest. And this particular one is a female. It had red fruit. So we just wanted to designate that it was a female. So not really different than the species, but we did want to follow that we had a female, so we can plant a male and a female together.
So that's interesting. You said albopunctifolia. So all the species members have this is just a normal pattern.
Yeah, this is what it looks like in the wild. This isn't a variegated sport, anything like that. It's not solid green in the wild.
That's really amazing. Cool.
It's got a great texture.
Ooh, I got something variegated and almost a falling tray. So, this is Calocarpa japonica wine spritzer, or Shiji Murasaki. And this is one we have if you're walking down the main border and you turn right towards just before the Japanese garden. It's right there. It's in its full glory. I love it every time I walk by it. It's a fabulous plant. This pattern of variegation is very consistent. It's an eye catcher. It has purple stems against all that light green and white. And it gets big, and I think it's pretty tough.
Yeah, we planted this thing on purpose in full sun. You know where it is. It is in full blazing sun. Thinking, because we like to evaluate plants and we like to put them through the ringer, and this thing has not burnt. This should be burnt to a crisp, and it is in a dry spot that never gets irrigation, gets full sun, and you never see a burnt leaf on it. It's amazing, amazing plant that I'm blown away by how well it tolerates sun.
It might even prefer it.
The foliage color, you get the best color in sun.
Yeah.
I've got one in shade, and it's much more green than that. There's still the white there, and it's looser and more open, whereas this is really dense and
just keeps building on top of itself in terms of the form.
Wish it had purple berries, but when it does fruit, they're white.
Can't win everything.
Can't win them all. So, all right, another rarity. This is a boxwood with these narrow leaves. It's called Buxus stenophylla. On occasion, I had some time in the evening while I'm watching something mindless, and I look through things, and there's there's a botanical garden kind of website that you can search for plants and see who has plants. And I was looking up boxwoods because there are so many boxwoods out there that we don't grow. And some of them with really long, narrow leaves, different things. Most are not in cultivation. This Buxus stenophylla I found in one collection in Hawaii and got some cuttings of it. I don't know if it's going to be hardy or not, but if it is, I can guarantee you it's going to be the only Buxus stenophylla. If you're not in North Carolina, it's going to be the only Buxus stenophylla in your state. It's, I don't know. This is when we talk about rare and unusual plants in our auction. Sometimes they are so rare and unusual, even we don't know much about them. It'll be an evergreen shrub where it's hardy.
And then this is a plant I have no knowledge about. I just saw it in the auction pile, and I had to grab it for this because it's so attractive. This is Viburnum cotonifolium. Am I to assume that means cotoneaster-leafed viburnum or cotton-leafed viburnum? Cotinus, like the smoke bush.
Smoke bush.
So nice round leaves. They're fuzzy. They're soft. And then the pubescence on the new growth is white. Other than that, I don't know anything about how big it gets or what it likes, but it sure is pretty. It
is. I'm glad you picked this as one of my favorite viburnums of all time. I wish it were fragrant. That would be, a great addition. But as it gets bigger, the leaves get big and round, really big, very distinctive. There's only two that really look that way to me. This and Viburnum furcatum. Get big clusters of white flowers, big viburnum clusters of white flowers, kind of lace cappy looking clusters, and then red fruits. Red, and they'll go to black if you let them stay on there long enough. But makes a big shrub. It does make a pretty big shrub. I've got it growing in pretty deep shade. I've got one which is kind of unusual. I don't know if it'll flower in the deep shade, but just texture-wise, it's so awesome that
it's still worth it.
It's worth it, yeah.
Very cool.
All right. This is a little Asarum. There was 20, 30 years ago, there was a Asarum madness. Everybody wanted Asarums. And then they kind of, you don't see people going gaga over them as much anymore, even though they should. This is a super unusual one, hence in our rare and unusual plants for Southern Gardens, uncommon plants. This is Asarum Taipingshanianum. So from Taiping Shan or Taiping Mountain in Taiwan. And we collected this along this what had been an old railroad trail. You would still follow the trail, although sometimes you had to go over what had been bridges for the train, and they were not real sturdy anymore. But this is a little leafed spreading asarum. It will spread, say in 5 years, you'll have a 3 foot by 3 foot clump. Really nice and dense when it does that. And it's got super glossy, dark green leaves with that little bit of silvery speckling on there. Now, acerums, even when they were in their prime and everybody was wanting them, and they were, the nurseries were selling lots and lots of them, this was a species that was never offered. We collected this on Typing Shine. It helps when the plant has the same name as the place where you are. It makes it easier to identify. But the spreading habit and the way the flowers sit we're pretty sure this is Typing Shineanum, and cool plant.
Yeah, I do love a spreading asarum, or one that forms a nice big clump, because then you don't have to worry so much about that one little patch, keeping that alive.
That one clump,
and then you can put it in other places once it gets big enough. That's awesome. This is just to pay homage. This is Illicium mexicanum Aztec Fire in honor of our 50th year and celebrating the J.C. Raulston and J.C. Raulston himself. Aztec Fire is one of his selections, and this is a nice, tough Illicium. We have it planted in pretty dry, part shade, and it still forms a nice clump, and it's about 4.5, 5 feet tall right now.
Yeah.
It has a very nice flower that's a little more outgoing from the plant. You can notice it more easily than on some Illicium that hide them. And it's just a tough plant. It's a good selection, and it's one that we've been growing for a long time. So we've got one more here for you.
Yeah, it's hard to come by, but it's a great plant. Those red flowers, you're right, they're held out there, and they're big size. They're big old, nice ones. I love it. And despite Mexicanum, it is perfectly fine here. We've been growing it since JC collected it back in the 80s in Mexico. He loved Mexican flora. Okay, this is a Sarcandra glabra. This is a evergreen to semi-evergreen, what we would call a subshrub. It stays small. It doesn't get real woody, but it does get woody at the base. We talk about plants that are good for shade, and sometimes we'll say, oh, they'll flower better in the sun. This is one that has to have shade. It does not like sun. It will burn in sun. It wants shade. You can see it's got these incredibly gorgeous flowers. Just joking, the flowers are not much to look at, but after the flowers, it'll get bright orange fruits, little clusters of bright orange fruits. And it only needs one plant. It's not one of those that needs multiple plants. This is our collection of it. From Asia, and we have found this to be about the most cold hardy we've ever grown. It is a little bit tender in zone 7B, but this is pretty solid 7B if you have it in shade. A cold winter, even with this one, will burn it back a little bit, but it'll flush back out past that. Really cool, and it keeps this kind of light green leaf. It's not a real dark green plant, so it's good to play around with it and use it like by a camellia or something else that has that really dark green.
Nice, yeah, to break up the shade garden. We do get a lot of dark green.
Green is a color. You can have different shades of green.
This is my last plant here, and it is in flower. This is Myrtus communis Andes hardy. It is a myrtle that we planted out in the old flowering lawn, which we haven't renamed, but it's not really a flowering lawn anymore. It's a rocky, hot, and dry soil, and it doesn't look too happy, but it did come back. It is hardy. So I'm thinking this might like a little more organic matter, a little more shade even.
I think it's going to come out okay. I think it's going to be all right. I think it's just that winter. It's Andes hardy, but typically myrtles aren't aren't hardy for us. And when we
Right.
say myrtle, there's a lot of myrtles, right? There's crepe myrtles, there's wax myrtles, there's all kinds. This is, when you read Greek myths and things like that, this is the myrtle. This is the myrtus myrtle. So it is the original. What I love about this are these little white flowers with like just hundreds of stamens coming out like a starburst. I just think that is the cutest little flower. I still remember the first time I saw one in flower. I was absolutely blown away. You can grow these in a pot if you live in a colder area and bring it indoors. That's the first time I saw one. It was in a big pot. It was staked up really straight, and it was this nice round head. And they obviously brought it inside and put it in front of a window for the winter, probably just barely watered it and then brought it outside for the summer. And it was gorgeous. And, you know, this has got flowers open. It's got buds at every stage on there. So it's going to flower for a good while.
I'm a little jealous. This is bigger than the one I planted as well, so I have half of mine to grab it, but I won't. I'll leave it.
All right. We had a Panax early on. Not a panic, but a Panax. This is another one. This is Metapanax. Metapanax Davidii, named for Father David or Pierre David from France, who did a lot of collecting during his missionary work in China. This makes a medium-sized shrub with these dissected leaves. They'll be, when it gets mature, they'll be dissected into 5 leaflets. When they're young like this, there might be 3 or it might be entire. But it gives this really neat kind of fingered texture on there. Gets flowers, which aren't very showy, gets black fruit, which can be nice, but you're really growing this for the form and the texture of it. Want some shade, probably, you can grow it in full sun. I grew this in full sun. And actually, in full sun during the winter, it turns almost black purple, parts of it, but not dead. But it is so dark that it goes from being ornamental into being looking a little like it got blasted by a blowtorch. So I like it in a little more shade where it'll stay green all winter.
That's interesting. So the leaves that are like almost black will recolor?
Yeah, they're not, it's not like they're burnt. It's the color is so dark on it. So there's just a handful. That was a quick run through 20 plants that are in the auction. Right now, I think we're sitting at somewhere around 300 plants that are going to be in there. We expect that to go up to 400, 450 plants.
We always get more last minute. Cool
all
stuff.
Of our botanical friends. Our auction has become such kind of known for such rare plants that all of our botanical friends who come to our symposium, which we love for you two as well, they bring the rarest of the stuff that they have for this auction, and which is why I bid on some of these things. And so we wind up with just this incredible thing, and everybody tries to outdo each other. I'll talk to somebody in December or January, and they'll say, "I've got something for the auction in June. I've got something for your auction. I'm not even going to tell you what it is, but I've got something cool for your auction." So it's pretty fun. We say you got to supply us with a description because we can't write a description for something we've never heard of.
Yeah, there's so many. It always blows my mind how many plants there are.
So if you have questions about some of these that we talked about or have questions about the auction, it'll only be running through June 5th. So you only have a few days to get in there for it. But if you have questions about any of them, you can email me. You go to jcra.ncsu.edu, and there's a staff list, and you can find, I'm the only Mark on there. And you're welcome to send me an email asking me about any of these plants or asking about how to get in there to the auction. But that will be on our front page of our of jcra.ncsu.edu.
All right.
So Evan, you picked some good plants to talk about.
Thanks for covering all the things I didn't know.
Well, that's what I'm here for. So since I got a lot of those, it makes it a little bit easier to do that. Hope you'll join us again next week for our next midweek. I would tell you what it is, but Blake is the keeper of all of that knowledge, and so I don't have it. But it's going to be a great one. We know that. Hope you bid on some plants at our auction. We will ship small plants. Everything we showed here is a size that we can ship for our auction. So we hope you'll come and bid early and bid often.